To the Power 2, TJ Pittinger, Tom Hannifan, Cole Thompson. If you could have seen the pre-show, I think you guys would have enjoyed it. But how you guys doing, man?
Cole, you want to go first?
Yeah, I'm fired up, man. I'm fired up. We've been talking about engagement farming. We've been talking about the offseason of college football. We've been talking about how there are things actually downtrodden or I think unwinding to where we actually have information coming out. Spring football's in full swing. Teams that we are really excited about. The two teams that we're talking about today, I'm very excited to talk about. And even though I'm an SEC guy and that this school does belong in the Pac-12, there's something about Washington that is always enticing to me, especially with a guy like Jedd Fisch at the helm and Damon Williams playing quarterback. I am a lot higher, I think, on the Huskies than most people are going into this year. And so same thing with Missouri. People like say all the time, you wish that you went to Missouri because you talk so highly of them. When you are a 10-win team back-to-back years, whether or not you're overrated, you got to double-digit victories. There's stuff to talk about out in Como that needs to be discussed going into what may feel like a pivotal year 3 of this regime underneath Eli Drinkwitz and the resurgence of Mizzou football.
Safe to say Cole doing well. Tom, how are you?
I just want to say suck it, Josh Pate, because you're not the only person that can wear a tight white T-shirt, baby. You probably got 240 extra pounds on me. Congratulations to that front, but I'm excited. Let's do it.
I don't go into an office or anything. And so I didn't even have a shirt on for most of this morning. And so I just went and grabbed one real quick. And every time I go grab a T-shirt, I do have plain white T-shirts in my drawer. I'm pretty hesitant to grab one because I've gotten comments before like, "Oh, you're just trying to look like Peyton." I'm like, "Listen, if you could see my physique, from here down and his, I'm really not trying. If I was trying to look like him, I would probably get in the gym more, like he is. It's not the white T-shirt's not hiding anything on my end. So
he looks great.
If I was the T-shirt is not what I'm trying to emulate here. I went with a lovely forest green, though, for the folks at home. All right, so we had the national championship in basketball. Really good game. Actually, one of the better. We had less upsets and I know we'll get to football here in a minute, but we'll go a little bit longer on an intro today. Less upsets in the first couple of rounds. Everybody blames NIL and the portal and all these other things. But I will say, from the Sweet 16 on, one of the best tournaments that I can remember. Just awesome matchups all the way through, and then we get to the Final Four, 2 really good games, the championship, a really good game. Cole, I know you're into basketball. I know you watch that a lot. Tom, I know you do a lot with wrestling for work. Is there a lot of is that more of a job? Do you really enjoy that? Let's talk through that. What do you guys do? We were just talking about college football off season. And we've talked about college football every single week of the offseason, so I will be fair to us on that. But what are your other sports vices? What else do you get into? I'll go first real quick. So I'm a big playoff hopper. So the Lightning are probably going to get the 2 seed in their division. So I'll watch the Lightning in the playoffs. The Lakers are battling between the 3 and 5. I was a big Kobe guy, so I always cheer for the Lakers. I'll watch that playoffs and stuff. So I kind of just hop around to every postseason and don't pay attention to any regular seasons, which unfortunately seems like what it's becoming some of college football stuff too. But that aside, Cole, what do you get into? Tom, what do you get into?
I still think that the NHL postseason is the greatest postseason in all professional sports. It's far and away. And I tell people all the time, if you want to see the true authenticity of hockey, and I'm a huge hockey dude. I know I live in Houston, but my dad's from Chicago. My mom's from New York. So I grew up on Islanders. I grew up on the Rangers. I grew up on the Blackhawks. That was always playing in the background of my house. I tell people all the time, if you want to see what is true hockey at its finest, watch a Game 7 must-win overtime playoff elimination game. I can tell you, you will never see more excitement and enthrallment within a 5-minute period. That is what the sport is all about. So I am locked in when it comes to the NHL playoffs. I'm excited to see kind of who are going to get those last 2 wild cards in the Western Conference right now. I pay attention to the NBA as much as possible. I work in sports talk radio in Houston. So naturally the Rockets are guaranteed to get the number 2 seed. Who's going to be the number 7 seed? Is it going to be the Nuggets, who simply decide to implode with 3 days left in the regular season? So you're paying attention to that stuff. I got baseball back in swing. The Astros have been a subject of conversation for over a decade down here for good and wrong reasons. But I love the NFL draft. And one of the main reasons I love the NFL draft is because it's more of watching college tape. And it's more of me being still involved in the college game. And what I appreciate about it is I'm looking at the player and the prospect and what they're going to turn into next year and what their upside is as a rookie at the NFL level. But I come back and I'm always paying attention to who is that next breakout star that we can talk about in the SEC, in the ACC, in the Big 12. Like, people think that I'm the SEC dude because of, yes, I represent the SEC on this channel. I love college football. You cannot catch me slipping on a Tuesday night when Liberty is taking on Kennesaw State for the first win in FBS program history. My wife and I got in a 45-minute fight why we were late to dinner because of I had to see Caden Salter lose to the Owls down in Kennesaw. Like, that was a big moment for me. So I love the NFL draft because of it lets me go back and watch film and see guys who I think are going to be really big household names in the world of the sport come this time next fall. So I'm big in the playoff hockey, big in the MLB, pay attention to the NBA. But get me talking on the NFL draft. We'll be here for hours.
We'll have to do a draft segment. Yeah, that was a tough one as a Liberty alum. That game sucked.
I didn't know you were.
I did not know you were a Liberty alum.
Yeah, 1 in a million Kennesaw State upsetting Liberty was quite the night in this household. So
learning a lot.
Tom, what about you?
Well, I'm very fortunate. Like, for 13 years now, I've worked in pro wrestling, and the beauty of that within sports broadcasting, sports media, is it's 52 weeks a year. There's a challenge with that, but it's also a blessing, as we all know. With the college football calendar, it's like, all right, we're in the doldrums right now, and we're just dying for it to come back. So I'm very fortunate in that respect, and I love pro wrestling. So there's literally something on all the time, and this month, like, WWE does WrestleMania, so this is a really hot time of the year in general. But for me, I remember doing an internship with the State College Spikes when I was at Penn State, and it was so boring because I was just sending in the stats to MILB.com as, like, every inning would go by. I was so bored that I would pull up on-demand video of CFL games just to have that on the screen on my laptop, like, muted, just to watch back games. And, like, I remember Jesse Lumsden with the Hamilton Tiger Cats just tearing it up at one point. And, like, shoot, you have Vernon Adams Jr., former Oregon Duck, former Eastern Washington player at one point. He's still in the league at this point. He's doing really well. Like, it's interesting to me to watch the best at college football then, like, transition and make it in the NFL. Like, I love draft time as well. But for me, the CFL, it's not even just for me, it's the truth, is the next best level of professional football. So I like seeing the guys that make it and then have sustainability within the CFL, because everybody believes it's like, oh, it's either the NFL or nothing. And then the UFL product is still kind of figuring itself out. I love watching the CFL. It's a different game. They throw the ball all over the yard. It's just different. I think it has this weird stigma about it, but I'm also a football junkie and I'm following, like, indoor football as well. I will watch the UFL. I have no life outside of college football, so it's the best.
Do you have a favorite team in the CFL?
No, that's the thing. Like, I don't
have one.
Team. No, I just like everybody. I just want everybody to have fun. No, I'll watch any. I'll watch any game.
Fan in you.
I'll watch any game.
See, I am a huge, for some reason, and I have the hat to prove it, I love the Montreal Alouettes. Like, there's something about their color scheme, and there's something about the way with the bird. It just, like, it hits on a hat, and it's like, okay, cool, if I'm ever going to be paying attention, I want to go get some poutine in Montreal, I'll go to an Alouettes game and prove my fandom. Because that's another thing that I have with people, like, in the Premier League all the time. It's so bothersome when they're like, oh, I'm a Manchester City fan. Have you ever been to a game out there? No? Then no, you're not. You're not. I have been to Liverpool. I have been to Anfield. I can claim allegiance to that program down south. I am more than fine with it.
We had a couple of thoughts, and then maybe we'll get into the actual show here.
Yeah.
We had an Arena League team here, the Tampa Bay Storm, and we would go all the time because you could get in for, like, nothing. I actually liked Arena League football. It was fun. I mean, I was young.
Years were good for the Tampa Bay Storm.
Oh, fun. Yeah, they were awesome. And then so the other thing I didn't mention, two things. Cole mentioned a couple of things that made me kind of remember. I do enjoy the Champions League. Like, I don't know how many people really care about international soccer. Arsenal was crazy.
Fun.
Yeah, it was a ton of fun. I always liked Messi a lot. Like, that was my guy. I mean, I still kind of watch his stuff in Miami. And to answer Cole's question, yes, I've seen him twice in Spain. I saw him against Ronaldo in the Clasico, which was really good. And I saw him once at Barcelona. So I can consider myself a true fan for going over there and seeing him.
Exactly. Steven Gerrard for life, dude. I'm always for that dude in Liverpool.
So much fun. But yeah, people that don't get into international, so like I've been to national championships, I've been to, whatever, Tiger Stadium, both of them. I've been to the Swamp, been to Tuscaloosa. Like there is nothing like the vibes, I guess is what the kids say, right? At a huge soccer match. Like I went to Chelsea, Man City this year because it was 3 days before Florida State played in Dublin. So we were like, hey, let's go over to London for this game. And it is insane. When you've got 8-year-olds like calling the referee the C word, it's it's a different level of intensity. Yeah. My wife and I are looking at him like, holy crap. And crap was not the word. That's a lot of fun. Also, you mentioned baseball. I like the Rays. They're just so up and down. And since it's a pro team, I kind of wait till the end of the year to really get into it. Florida State did a fun thing this last weekend. I was up in Tallahassee. They're not having a spring game. They were actually the first to not have a spring game, but it's due to the renovations of Doak, not because of tampering, because who would want any of FSU's players?
Exactly.
But they did a spring sports weekend. And I want to say there were 3 baseball games, 3 softball games. There were like 4 tennis matches. They had a beach volleyball tournament going on. So Florida State played 5 of the 20 games that happened. I want to say there were like 20 athletic events on campus that weekend, and they stacked them all so that you could get around and do them. They had more people. Now, a lot of them were repeats at going to different events, but they had more people at the totality of all the events than they would have had just for one spring game, right? Florida State's not going to put 50,000 people in the seats for a spring game, even when they're good. In fact, 50,000 is their record in Orlando. But I thought that was a unique way to kind of get people involved with other sports since they weren't having a spring game. And I do get into some college athletics. Like I went to the Florida State-Florida game last night and sat in the press box for that. I've been to a ton of softball games and a ton of different things. So I do kind of rock with, being the resident Florida State fan here, I do kind of rock with the other sports that are not just football. And that's fun. College athletics are fun, even when it's not the football or basketball stuff that you're getting into. So that's kind of an off-season, time waster for me too.
Well, is it safe to say that TJ is a bandwagon hopper?
I would not entirely go that far, but I would say that
he's a Liberty Flame.
He's a Liberty Flame that hopped on the FSU bandwagon, and now to me, he was more so talking about this Lakers squad and who else plays for the Lakers.
You like the Cowboys? Yeah. I heard they play football.
No, I heard that he loves the Lakers because of Kobe, and then there's of course another guy that many people hop on the bandwagon with. They were Cavs fans for a while, and then they headed down to South Beach. They burned their jerseys when he went back to Cleveland, and now he's over there. So what is it? And now Luka's going on in. And listen, to the people in Dallas, what I will say is Nico Harrison has allowed you to burn that allegiance and really pick another team. If you pick Los Angeles, you got to stay with them when they stink after LeBron and Luka are gone. But you're allowed to pick that fandom because Nico Harrison decided to completely ruin your life in the span of 48 hours.
I named my middle kid Bryant, so I feel like it's
after
Lakers.
Bear? Good for you. I knew you were an Alabama fan in heart.
That's why. So it is Lakers for life here. So also I lived through the lost decade of FSU, and then what maybe a second one here that we're going into before I went to Liberty. So yeah, the Florida State stuff is.
I didn't understand your lineage with it, so that's interesting.
Yeah, but yeah, as far as like hopping around the playoffs, that's really where I'm probably more bandwagon. But also like I can't watch every regular season NBA, MLB, and NHL game. I'll end up a divorce.
Oh, it's impossible to.
If I try and do that, I get away with watching every single college football game that I want to in the fall, and then everything else is like, all right, I'll just watch the playoffs if my team is in it. So, all right, now that we're 13 minutes into this thing, let's get rolling with, let's go SEC first. Let's go to Missouri. Cole, give us some good news on the Tigers.
This is a really interesting team. The way that I would describe Missouri going into 2025 is the way I felt about South Carolina going into 2024. They're the ultimate wildcard team. You could tell me that they get to 10 wins, they make the college football playoff, everything is hitting in the right direction, and they're a force that actually could make some noise. Or they could go 5-7, regression sets on in. They have to go look for the long-term answer at defense coordinator. Offensive coordinator leaves in the offseason. They have a ton of inconsistencies with the offensive personnel at wide receiver. And what we felt about Eli Drinkowitz has completely gone out the door. But how did we get to this point? Let's start off in 2024 with how this team did finish the year 9-3. On top of finishing 9-3, they also lost all 3 games to opponents that were at one point considered top 10 teams in college football on the road. Lost in week 5 to Texas A&M, lost to Alabama in Tuscaloosa after you lost Brady Cook for that game and Drew Pine came on in through, 5 interceptions, if I'm not mistaken. And then, of course, the South Carolina game out in Williams-Brice Stadium that went down to the wire. Luther Burden in the back of the end zone gives them the lead. And unfortunately, you just watch as Rocket Sanders gets the shovel pass and South Carolina's dreams of going to the college football playoff stay alive. This was a team that did finish the year with a victory over Iowa in the Music City Bowl, and so they put together back-to-back double-digit win seasons underneath Eli Drinkwitz. Now, there are some people out there that have said this is the most overrated 10-win team in college football. Well, 10 wins in a regular season would have gotten you into the college football playoff, as evident by Illinois and Missouri being on the outside looking in. They both got 10 wins, so they deserve a little bit of credit. They did lose a lot this offseason. Brady Cook, who has been the starter for the last 3 seasons, is now off to the NFL draft. The same thing goes for Theo Wees, wide receiver number 2, and wide receiver number 1, former All-SEC wide receiver Luther Burden. They also lost both of their starting tackles. Marcus Bryant is no longer there, and Armand Membo, who is expected to be a top 15 pick in this year's draft, he is also off to the NFL. Lost several names on the defensive side as well. Here's the good news. They did a good job of replenishing the talent in the transfer portal. Headlined by a guy that Tom knows very well, Bo Pabula is coming on in at quarterback. This is a mobile player who is known for his athletic play style, got a good arm, has the mechanics that you want in a playmaker, and more importantly, I think is a really intriguing fit for Kirby Moore's offense. The things that we saw that were really positive for Brady Cook down the stretch, those are some things that Bo Pabula does extremely well. And while the sample size is very limited, it's very promising. Tom, my mistake. Was it the Nebraska game or was it the Wisconsin game where Pabula played the entire second half?
I believe it was the entire second. It was most of the second half with Wisconsin. Yeah,
Wisconsin. And he ended up playing really well in that game. I think he had a 71.2 completion percentage. He had 2 touchdowns. He had another rushing touchdown. He was used in packages as well. So there is at least a small sample size of what Kirby Moore is going to be able to work with when it comes to how he stands on out. They also added in a couple of other players. Damon Wilson, the defensive end from Georgia, former top 15 prospect. He comes on into Como. Really good at that Joker type role that you're going to be losing with Johnny Walker going off to the NFL. He has an opportunity to be a complete difference maker off of the edge. You also brought in Johnny Williams, the offensive tackle from West Virginia. You brought in Kevin Coleman, the wide receiver, very underrated wide receiver last season out of Mississippi State. They also landed Dominic Gilsey from Michigan. Nate Johnson comes on in from Appalachian State. Josiah Trotter is one of the more undervalued linebackers from the Big 12 last year. Started 11 games for West Virginia. I think it could be a plug-and-play addition to what you're adding in for a guy in Corey Batoon's defense. And then probably the prize jewel of them all, Ahmad Hardy comes on in from Louisiana Monroe. This was a guy that rushed for over 1,300 yards as a freshman, proved that he was capable of being a do-it-all playmaker. Now he gets to pair alongside with Jamal Roberts. They also had a pretty decent recruiting class overall. Now, decent by Missouri standards. Finished number 14th among all teams, and they were number 6 among SEC teams. They landed, of course, the 4-star wide receiver, and I know I'm going to butcher his name from IMG Academy, but Donovan Ugolbe. They also landed 4-star Javian Harris. Matt Zollers is the long-term quarterback coming on in from Roseford, Pennsylvania. Wide receiver Sean Terry comes on in from Ironton, Ohio. Henry Fanuku comes on in from North Crawley in Fort Worth, Texas. He's another 4-star. And they round out their 4 stars with Marquise Davis, the running back that comes on in from Cleveland, Ohio. What are the expectations for this team? Their schedule is extremely manageable, and they do have a veteran feel with a lot of guys. Now, I know that they are going to have to replace what they're losing in terms of the offensive tackles, but they are replacing both guys with former starters who have experience playing at Power 4 programs. They also have all 3 returning starters from the interior offensive line, including one of the best centers in college football in Connor Tolleson, as well as Caden Green, the former 5-star offensive lineman that was at Oklahoma that crossed enemy lines and went on over to Missouri, which became a massive issue and argument for an ample amount of time in the world of college football because of what we know about that rivalry between Missouri and Oklahoma. I think that when you look at this team, the expectation should be that they are building towards success. They are building towards this identity of being in that realm of that top 20 range? Do you want to be a team that people believe is going to continuously have this type of success? That what we have seen with a place like Ole Miss, what we have seen with a place like South Carolina, what we have seen with a place like Tennessee, Missouri can be in that realm of conversation. They have, I think, a good baseline and a foundation. They return both of their starting coordinators, which is a massive win, in my opinion, when it comes to continuity and consistency. The schedule, as I also mentioned, pretty easy. The 3 teams that they played and lost to last year, they all have to come to Como this season. South Carolina early on in the season, a mid-round matchup against Alabama, and they also close out the season against Texas A&M, Mississippi State, and Oklahoma. Several other games I'm also watching at this point. The matchup against Kansas on September 6th. This is a rivalry that has been in the works for ages. I cannot wait to see the Big 12 bout once again continue. That was at least a big storyline when they were in the Big 8. I think that is a game that you cannot sleep on Lance Leipold. You cannot sleep on Jalen Daniels. They have an opportunity to put boot to ass and prove that they are still a forceful team in the SEC. And then back-to-back road trips against Auburn and Vanderbilt. The Auburn game, you needed to go down to the wire and get a comeback with Brady Cook on Percocets and sheer determination to pull off the win against Auburn. And then you went to double overtime against Diego Pavia at home. Now you're going to First Bank Stadium. I think of the X-Factor player this season, I'm going to go with Jamal Roberts and Ahmad Hardy. I know that's kind of a cheating formula, but I think of that running game, taking pressure off of Bo Pabula as he gets acclimated into working with Kevin Coleman, gets acclimated into working with Marquise Johnson and Brett Norfleet, the tight end, who is a mismatched nightmare red zone force, and building a rapport with this offensive line could do wonders for this team. And my X factor, I think, overall for this team, I'm going to go with the secondary. I thought there was a lot of hit and miss last season. They do have some veterans returning. Toriano Pride is going to be back there. They also landed a couple of other transfers, including guys like Jalen Catalon, who's been in college football for what feels like 17,000 years at this point. And then Stephen Hall comes on in from Washington State. If they can build that relationship and have a really good foundation with their back 5, including what they're going to have at the Joker position with Damon Wilson, what they're going to have at the Mike linebacker position with Josiah Trotter, and what they're going to have with their 3 returning starting defensive linemen, including Zion Young, who single-handedly got the win over Oklahoma, I think that there is a lot to like about this Missouri team. There is a very good shot if Pabula is the answer, that with this schedule, they can go 10-2. 10-2 might not be good enough to get you to Atlanta, but we know one thing about the SEC. You got double-digit regular season wins. You're punching your ticket to the college football playoff. Do not sleep on Missouri with this schedule, and if they have the identity that I think that they can possess.
Cole, we'll touch on Pabula a little bit later on when we do buy-sell weight in terms of quarterbacks, but I'm curious, in your opinion, how far off is Mizzou under Eli Drinkowitz from potentially challenging for an SEC title?
I still think of a ways away. That's not to be insulting, but I think that there is a fine line. And then you have to realize that some of the teams that go up against each other, their pathway are more battle-tested when they get to Atlanta. I mean, Georgia, whether or not they went 10-2 last year, they played against an Alabama team that still beat them to oblivion in the first half. They went up against a Florida team that still showed grit and determination despite losing their starting quarterback and then their backup quarterback in DJ Lagway turning to a kid that a year ago was at Yale. They had to play against Auburn. They had to play against Ole Miss, and they lost that Ole Miss game. So these were teams that some people thought were good enough to be in that college football playoff running. Tennessee was one that went to the college football playoff. They handled business against them in the fourth quarter. Where I look at where Missouri is, if they can play 4 quarters of consistent football and lose to an Alabama squad, which they couldn't do last year, if they can play 4 quarters of consistent football and beat a South Carolina team, a team that they almost did last year, if they could be able to dismantle Texas A&M with a defensive-minded coach and Mike Elko at the helm and be able to handle business against a team that I think that many people are sleeping on in the Big 12 with Kansas and Lance Leipold, then yeah, I could say they're at least in that conversation of maybe they'll make it to Atlanta. But I do look at teams like LSU, and I think that LSU this year, they have a gauntlet to get to the SEC championship in the college football playoff. And they're going to be going up against teams that many will have money on to win a national title and be a force if they make it to the dozen dance. I think Alabama's in that same category. I think Texas, with how much talent they're replacing, if they're able to look as consistent as they did in 2024 as they did in 2025, then there's a really good spot for them to be in that realm. Same thing with Georgia. Same thing with Florida. There's just some teams that Missouri will not be facing off against that are probably not going to get them as prepared. And you got to wonder what's going to happen next offseason when the schedule does change and they do have to play against teams like Texas. They do have to play against teams like Georgia. They do have to play against teams like LSU, because we all know that the schedule is going to flip in a year from now, where if you hadn't played against them the last 2 years, guess you're facing the next 2 years.
Let's go over to the Big Ten, and Tom, a team that goes into year 2 under a new coach. Let's talk about Washington.
I'm really excited about the Huskies. I was just doing a show that's going to come out on Believe in Big Ten with myself and Brett Lewis later this week about teams that could make a jump in 2025 within the Big Ten. Washington has got to be one of the first teams that you talk about. So first year under Jed Fish, I mean, inheriting an extremely difficult situation that Kalen DeBoer leaves, most of his staff leaves, how basically you were looking at the Alabama Crimson Huskies this past season. So 2024 finished 6-6, 4-5 in the Big Ten, lost to Louisville in the Sun Bowl by 1 point. They lost to Wazoo at home in their third game of the season, which is never good if you're a UW fan. The Big Ten wins were against Northwestern, number 10 Michigan, which surprised a lot of people, beat USC at home, beat UCLA at home. All their losses, however, were on the road. Within the Big Ten, losses at Rutgers, at Iowa, number 13 Indiana, number 6 Penn State, and number 1 Oregon. So a tough schedule, but still to come out of that 6-6 in the regular season, 6-7 overall with the bowl loss is pretty encouraging. Coming back this season, number 1 rusher, Jonah Coleman, who is a powerhouse. I really like what his game is. He is a thumper. Wide receiver Denzel Boston, first in touchdown catches last year for the Huskies. Cornerback Ephesians Prysock, safety Mikel Easton, center Landon Hatchett, his brother, actually just transferred from Oklahoma. I'll get to that in a minute. Guard Packy Finau and offensive tackle Drew Azzopardi. So you get the bulk of your offensive line back. In the portal, they got former Penn State Nittany Lion wide receiver Amari Evans. They do need some help at wide receiver, considering who's off to the National Football League. Offensive tackle Carver Willis from Kansas State. Linebacker Tariq Al-Quda from Washington State. So there's a little bit of a betrayal there. Linebacker Zari Alexander from UCF. Defensive lineman Samade Pepa from Utah, expected to be a starter. Safety Alex McLaughlin, elevating from Northern Arizona to Washington. There's a lot of expectations for him. The aforementioned Garion Hatchett from Oklahoma. That's going to be interesting. And then some guys from Arizona that Jed Fish knows intimately. Cornerback Takario Davis, linebacker Jacob Manu, and defensive lineman Tiati Uiagalelei. So continuing to draw from that pipeline. And I'll get to more on that in a moment when it comes to recruiting. But the departures are interesting. 29 departures overall in the transfer portal. The notable ones, defensive back Jordan Shaw, who saw a lot of time last year off to Texas A&M. Another cornerback, Thaddeus Dixon, led the team in pass breakups. He is now a North Carolina Tar Heel. The very complicated situation with wide receiver Jonte Cook II, who was at Texas, transferred to Washington, and then dealt with some off-the-field issues, was arrested. So is still somebody who is out in the transfer portal, I imagine, and dealing with personal issues, so is not a part of the team. To the NFL, it's rough for Washington this year. Linebacker Carson Bruner, far and away the best player on this defense. A linebacker leading your team in interceptions is pretty surprising, and he is going to have a fantastic career in the National Football League. Veteran quarterback Will Rogers, 2 top wide receivers in Giles Jackson, Jeremiah Hunter, tight end Kaleki Latu is their number 1 pass-catching tight end. Safety Cameron Fabiculanen is fantastic and is going to go probably on the second day in the NFL draft, in my opinion. Linebacker Alfonso Tuputala, defensive tackle Sebastian Valdez, and defensive lineman Voy Tunufi. So there's some real good talent that's off to the National Football League. The thing that I thought was really interesting with Jed Fish, class of 2024, he basically inherited 4 commits remained in that class, 48th nationally, 14th in the Big Ten. It's pretty incredible. All of this is according to On3. This year, they got 28 commitments, 25th class nationally, 7th in the Big Ten, according to On3. Some of the standouts, linebackers, Zedrius Rainey Sale, a 4-star, cornerback Dylan Robinson, also a 4-star, same with safety Brylan Dillard Allen, and interior offensive lineman Champ Tulealea. So 23 out of 28 recruits are from the Western Seaboard or Hawaii, including all 4 of the aforementioned 4-stars. So Jed Fish is going to work. This upcoming season, you're at Washington State for the Apple Cup on September 20th. You want revenge there, but you've got to begin to prove that you can win games on the road, considering their struggles last year. You host Ohio State. You're at Michigan this year. You host Illinois and you host Oregon. So that is going to be a big leg up for Washington. That is a difficult place to play. Here's the thing. Last year, 6-6 in the regular season, 6-7 overall. I could see this team finishing 8-4, probably at best. And that's not a bad thing. I know that looks like an incremental jump in terms of the numbers. I think it's just going to be about how it looks for Washington. I think it's going to be a lot more of a dangerous team. But again, you have Ohio State, Illinois, Oregon, and Michigan on the road on your schedule. That's tough. Jed Fish at Arizona, year 1, 1-11. Year 2, 5-7. Year 3, 10-3 with a bowl win. So there is precedent when it comes to Fish. I mentioned the exodus with Kalen DeBoer, so that's going to be something they're still kind of rebuilding this program from what was a team that appeared in the national championship just 2 years ago. Breakout player, I'm looking at defensive end Isaiah Ward. 3 sacks last year, was tied for second on the team. They have to do better in that department. The Huskies only had 20 sacks last year. So Ward has to be a reason why that number goes up in 2025. As I mentioned, the players that are off to the National Football League, he's replacing a lot. And there is precedent in terms of defensive ends, edge rushers from Washington to carry on that legacy. Braylon Trice, Edefuan Uliafashio, and Joe Tryon-Shoyinka as well. So there's been a lot of good Huskies at that position. The X factor, and this is what everybody should be talking about this coming season. Quarterback Damon Williams II appeared in every game last year. He started the final 2. He accounted for 10 touchdowns and over 1,000 yards from scrimmage as the backup quarterback. Very dynamic player. He's smaller. I believe he's listed about 5'11", 195 pounds. Those numbers might be generous. So there is that issue, but he can kill you with his legs. 78% completion percentage in 2024 with limited opportunities and a condensed playbook. What will that look like under Jed Fish in year 2 as the full-time starter with a new slate of weapons? And a lot of credit to Washington. They have stayed the course despite the mass exodus from the DeBoer era.
I want to go back to Damon Williams because if I saw a list earlier today that had him ranked as the number 7 returning starting quarterback in college football for 2025, I don't want to get in an argument with that because he only started 2 games. Like he is my number 2 breakout player in the sport this upcoming year. I am so excited to see what he can bring. But the thing that I continue to go back to is it's year 2 underneath Jed Fish. There was another quarterback in year 2 underneath Jed Fish that threw for over 2,800 yards, that had a completion percentage of 72.2%, 25 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, came in at 5'10" and 188 pounds, and led his team to a 10-win season. And that was Noah Fifita. Is there something about Damon Williams being fully indoctrinated where he got to at least play reps last year, even limited reps, with this offense underneath Fish, and then you throw in an Amari Evans, who may just need to change the scenery to hit his full potential. You bring back a Jonah Coleman. You have 3 starters returning on the offensive line. You feel good about your tight end room to where nobody should be shocked if somehow Damon Williams is one of the most talented quarterbacks in the Big Ten, and more importantly, a reason why the Huskies going into that month of November with where their schedule is, where they have matchups potentially against a Michigan on the road, Purdue, UCLA, and Oregon to close things out, where, yeah, it's possible that we're not going to go to Indianapolis, but if there is a 4th spot in the college football playoff for a Big Ten team, we're fighting for it.
I think they're going to fight for it. Damon Williams, from everything I've heard and read about him, is that they had to fight to keep Will Rogers on the field most of last season. I think that was a situation where Will Rogers was I think we can all understand, a serviceable, veteran, competent starting quarterback
for a year, yes,
at the college football level. So a nice little rental there, and you didn't feel great about starting Damon Williams initially. And as I mentioned, he was on a condensed package. So the things that he did last year, you have to see if it's going to work full time. But they had to keep him off the field when it came to Will Rogers. So I think this year, one, to the points that you just mentioned about Fifita, he fits what Jed Fish wants to do to a T. He is set up for success with what they have offensively. Defensively, they're going to have to figure out ways to stop some people. The pieces that went off to the National Football League are important. They've got to be able to find a way to win on the road. But Damon Williams has all the burst and excitement that I think can work at this level. And shoot, if the conversation Brock Purdy just put out there about like, yeah, I can't see, 40% of what I'm doing out there on the field. It's like, okay, it's not the first smaller quarterback to get the job done, especially at the college football level. But I think there's just a good opportunity this year. The schedule plays out pretty well to the point you were saying. The road schedule's not as bad. You're still playing some superior competition. So again, I urge people to not get hung up on the number of wins, the over-under for this team this coming season. Look at it. Tell me how it looks. Tell me how it feels. Baseline, UW is going to be a fun team to watch with Damon Williams.
All right, let's have some fun on this one. Cole, thanks for your efforts on putting this together for us and giving us an idea on a new segment. Buy, sell, wait. Was that the best way to call it? I don't know. That's close enough. That's what I can.
Keep, cut, hold is what I usually call it, but still.
What was yours? Sorry.
Keep, cut, hold.
Keep, cut, hold. All right. Who wants to go first here? We'll let Cole go first here. We're each going to have 3 quarterbacks that were given to us by another member of the show. So we didn't get to pick our quarterbacks. That'd have been way too easy. I'd have just picked somebody that was terrible to cut. But Cole, go first. Tom, you had the 3 quarterbacks for Cole. Keep one, hold one, cut one.
Yeah.
So my picks were the aforementioned Bo Pribula from Mizzou. I think we're obligated when it comes to the SEC to talk about Arch Manning and Texas. And then Nico Iamaleava from Tennessee. Those are your 3.
This is challenging because there's a part of me with my Mizzou fandom that has just been embedded in my system since I watched Sean Weatherspoon play to believe that, yes, Bo Pribula would be an easy hold because of the expectations are, what if he's now a full-time starter? But it's the easy cut for me because of he hasn't been a full-time starter, where even though I don't know what I'm getting entirely in Arch, I know what the sample size has been exciting. I'm going to keep Arch Manning, and the reason I'm keeping Arch Manning is because there are some athletic traits that just stand out about his game that I think were limited with Quinn Ewers. And there's a lot of people that are going to go back and have revisionist memory and say, if this 4th down play features 16 versus 3 on the field, Texas converts, they get the first down, and maybe the entire outlook of the season changes. So there's a part of me that says if he is as advertised, if he is as expected, even though you are adding 3 new wide receivers, and we don't know who those are going to be. We know DeAndre Moore is going to have an opportunity to be wide receiver number 1. We know that they also brought in some really good up-and-coming talent like Khalil Lockett. They brought in Jamie French. We also know that they really love Ryan Wingo, and Wingo has an opportunity to be the number 1 force in the SEC this year. Even though they are replacing 4 starting offensive linemen, that mobility, I think the footwork, I think his throwing motion, I think his mechanics, being a part of the Manning lore is going to carry a lot of weight. He's been in Steve Sarkisian's system for 3 years. This is not a guy that you're throwing out there as a freshman saying, hey, figure it out. You're a Manning. You should be able to do this. This is a guy that has everything locked on up. So I'm going to keep Arch Manning, and I'm holding my stock on Nico. And the reason I'm doing this, boys, is because of I remember saying last offseason, do not be shocked when all of this hype from people that work in this industry that know that they'll get clicks because Tennessee is an easy place to go ahead and engagement farm. People are salivating to watch a quarterback come on in if he does not meet the expectations. And I told people, expect this to be a defensive heavy team and a good rushing attack. But in year 2 underneath Josh Heupel as a full-time starter, the way that we're going to be talking about Nico is the way that we should have been talking about him a year from now, not in 2024. And we know this because of what did we watch with Hendon Hooker? A full transparent rebuild and a full more stableness of confidence, a team that was more explosive. I do wonder about that wide receiver room. I got to be able to see a little bit more from Mike Matthews. I know Braylon Staley is going to be lining up in the slot and that there's expectations for Chris Brazzell to take that next step forward. They love Travis Smith, the 4-star wide receiver. They think that he could be a household name by the end of the year. But I just feel like a full season where I get to see Nico in his element, using his legs, the mobility is going to be holding out a little bit more. There's a bit more excitement, I think, that comes this season. So I'm not ready to sell my stock on Nico. I'm not ready to go fully into the orange, go Vols, red, like that puke orange that people like to. I'm not ready to go that far, but I'm going to hold out hope that, yes, what we believed Nico was going to be after that Citrus Bowl win against Iowa, it just was a year delayed. It wasn't put on display and then thrown on the shelf and said, hey, that was the moment where people decided to lose their minds.
And you have a sell?
Oh, so was Bro Pabula.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was an easy one. He barely played. Like that's the whole thing is that I at least know what I'm getting in Arch from the athletic standpoint. It's a hard sell because I've watched Pabula go off this year and watch him end up being better than Drew Aller. But still, I mean, it's an easy sell for me right now.
All right, so Tom, do you have any thoughts on that, or are we following up on these?
I mean, Will Levis did make Sean Clifford look pretty bad in the year after that. I just want to say, if we get an overall governing body that controls schedules across the board in college football, why wouldn't you schedule Mizzou versus Penn State in 2025 so you get Aller versus Pabula?
Just
like
once.
This is just television booking, people.
Okay.
Like, seriously, I hate to make everything pro wrestling, but like it's super easy.
Get rid of bowl tie-ins and just have it happen in the postseason.
No, this has to be both teams go 10-2. They both get the 8 and 9 seed. They play against each other in Happy Valley. Like move it 10 Ohio State. Just do that
into overtime because
exactly. Pabula gets the last laugh in the SEC's reign supreme.
Oh God.
Tom has Dylan Raiola, Dante Moore, and Fernando Mendoza coming over from Cal.
This one's tough in that I'm going to sell Dante Moore for the similar reasons that Cole put out there. It's just, we just don't know. We have a very limited sample size of what he is. There's a lot of hype behind him. I think he's going to fit really well in this Oregon offense. And by the time 2025 is over, he could be in that argument for perhaps the best quarterback in the Big Ten. But I just don't know at this point in time on April 9th, 2025. I have a better understanding of Dylan Raiola and Fernando Mendoza. So I am going to keep Dylan Raiola, again, better sample size within the Big Ten. I like what he put on tape last year, especially when Dana Holgorsen was calling plays. I think they've given him more pieces to work with on offense, which is going to be exciting. And yeah, canceling the spring game ought to just really make everything perfect for Matt Rule and company. But they have to perform. I think there's a lot of pressure on them, but I think the schedule sets up well for Dylan Raiola to take a leap this coming season. Fernando Mendoza is very interesting. And I mentioned it before. I just did a show this week that'll come out later on with Rhett Lewis, former Indiana Hoosier wide receiver, my co-host on Believe in Big Ten, talking about Fernando Mendoza and the way that he's spoken about Mendoza. And all due respect to Curtis Rourke, who played his butt off this past season. Fernando Mendoza might be set up to play even better than Rourke played last year. Perhaps a better skill set, stronger arm. And I think the interesting thing with him is you got more years of eligibility to work with at Indiana under Curt Cignetti in a season where they're going to try and prove they're not just a one-hit wonder. So I'm going to keep Dylan Raiola. I'm going to hold Fernando Mendoza. I'm going to sell Dante Moore.
Can I counter-argue this just simply because I'm going to hold out hope that Dylan Raiola is going to be the right answer as soon as he decides to hold out and realize I need to have my own personality and not just be Patrick Mahomes at the college football level. Like, I mean, honestly, like at least Fernando Mendoza is who he is. He's prideful.
Yeah, he's for the boys. He is for the boys.
He's crying on the sidelines after losing to Cal, and now all we're getting is this Dylan Raiola watching film of Patrick Mahomes' pregame and then literally cosplaying at him. Like he went to Nebraska to wear that same red. Like that's the entire reason I believe it. But I do agree with you. Dana Holgorsen in that offense, it's a match made in heaven, and it's a scary thought for anybody out in Lincoln right now that this may be the year where Nebraska's good.
Mm-hmm. I like it.
Cole gave me 3. I was really hoping he would throw some of the rivals that Florida State has in here to just make it extra spicy, but he didn't. Who do we have here, Cole?
Because you're our resident other 2 guys, so I want to make sure that we threw in the other 2 conferences out of respect. Your 3, Jalen Daniels from Kansas, CJ Bailey from NC State, and Sawyer Robertson from Baylor, who may single-handedly had saved Dave Aranda's job last year.
Yeah, this might surprise people, or they may not be aware that any of these guys, well, Jalen Daniels well known enough, but people may not even know that CJ and Sawyer were quarterbacks at those places. So maybe people won't care about this take, but I am interested to hear the responses to this. I'm going to buy Sawyer Robertson.
Yes.
I think that the potential he has shown, I mean, taking over, and like you just said, I mean, I had that as a point in my notes here, so I'll try not to be long-winded so we can get to the wild card. But yeah, the way that they played the second half of the year last year. Baylor was so bad in the beginning of the year and then ascended, but they were already like too far out of it for people to care. But if they would have gotten this kind of performance early, like they would have been a team that people would have talked about late, and over 3,000 yards passing, 30 plus total touchdowns, the way that he can run and pass, the way that he stepped up and led after Browning's injury. Like I'm buying it. I think that the stock is high right now, but I still think it's a good time to buy. You're still kind of buying low. Is it crazy to think that he could even get into like dark horse Heisman conversations if they play really well? I mean, they're gonna have to win 10, 11 games for that to happen. Yeah. But I do think that coming back healthy, the excitement around them, Baylor's schedule sets up well. He's my buy, and it's not close. Here's maybe where we get to more controversy.
I don't think so.
I'm selling on Jalen. And I think he's the most talented of the three. Like, there's no question of the amount of talent that he truly has. Just inconsistency and injuries make it a risky investment. Could he be the best of the three? There is no doubt. If he puts it all together and stays healthy, there's a very good chance that he has the best season of these three. Kansas finished on a very good peak at the end of the year. He obviously had heroics in previous seasons, and there's a reason that there was so much hype for him going into 2024. He had a okay season, but a 14 to 12 touchdown to interception ratio worries me. I do think that the way he started the year last year, I don't know if it was a focus thing. I don't know if it was an injury. I don't know what the issue was, but he just wasn't as efficient. So I'm selling him high. Again, he could very well have the best year of the three, but I'm just not ready to do anything but sell him. And then I will not give up on CJ Bailey just yet. He's young, tons of potential, very raw. He needs to develop, but as a true freshman, I thought he did a good job after McCall went down. He certainly, NC State was in just an abysmal place early. He came in and kind of righted that ship some, as well as he could. What did he finish? 5-3 over his starts?
I think it was 4-4 or 4-5, something like that.
Yeah. So kind of average, but stepping into a tough situation with a team that was not very good. 2,000 yards passing, 13 touchdowns, 8 picks, but he did have big moments. They did upset Cal. They were close in other games that have people feeling optimistic. New OC, I do think that would be the one that I hold. He also just a timing factor is big. He's got more time than Jalen, who has the one last year left. So, buy Baylor, sell on Daniels, and we'll hold on
CJ Bailey.
CJ, yeah, sorry.
I don't think it's that bold to say that if you do your top 10 quarterback rankings, Sawyer Robertson is in that range of 10 through 14. I don't think it's that. Right now, I would say that he is the second best quarterback in the Big 12, only behind Sam Leavitt.
I think I'd buy. I need to look at the whole. I need to make sure there's not somebody that I'm like leaving completely out of here. But
I think Caden, your Liberty Flame, I think he deserves some consideration.
Yeah, I'd have him top 5 for sure, right?
Yeah,
but I don't know that
in conference. In conference.
Yeah. In the Big 12. I mean, maybe top 3, but I don't know. I want to see it.
I'd still take Avery Johnson over him.
He was disappointing last year for sure.
He was, which is why they get to clear cut number 2, Sawyer Robertson, right now.
All right, let's go to the wild card. We got about 6 minutes left. We're going to go kind of rapid fire on this, but we have 5 things. You guys are going to fix college football. All the issues that we have with college football, you're going to propose a quick fix because nobody else has seemed to figure it out. A quick fix to get this sport back on the right track. I'll go through each one of them. I'm not going to give you a heads up on what they are. We'll go Cole first on this first one, and then we'll just alternate back and forth. So Cole will go first 3 times. Cole, fix NIL.
Number 1, there has to be a salary cap for teams that are currently in college football. Now, of course, the salary cap could be at a certain level based off of what you lose in terms of players in the transfer portal, what you lose in players at graduation, but there is a salary cap just like the NFL percentage. If you are taking players from the G5 level, I do believe that just like you can talk about when it comes to paying for a new head coach, you do a buyout system. There is a certain level to where you pay their NIL funds to be able to bring them on in, because why would they want to go to your school to begin with? To help you win a championship? What are they doing by hurting the other school? hurting them from winning a championship or even a conference championship and being that running for that 12 seed in the college football playoff. And last and certainly not least, honoring commitments. If you are signed to a 2-year contract in NIL, you must stay with the school for 2 years. When your NIL contract is up, you are allowed to enter the transfer portal. And with the transfer portal, you are only allowed to enter one time before having to sit out for an entire year like we used to see.
Tom? Was that one or all five at the same time? That was a lot. Was that
Cole
one?
did jump a little bit into the next one, but
was that one? Okay, so my one is piggybacking kind of the contract situation. I look at it differently. If you're a 5-star and I love you, here's a 3-year deal with a 4th-year option and tiered compensation as it goes. If you're a 1-star, 2-star, even a 3-star, here's a 1-year deal. That's it. Make this as much like the NFL as humanly possible. And if guys want to jump in the transfer portal, you restrict that for the guys you love. You don't restrict that for the guys that you're not in love with, and you compensate them accordingly. So I completely agree with the revenue sharing model, but I think the contracts need to resemble the NFL style, not employee status deals. Don't do that because that's going to be an absolute nightmare, and you're going to welcome unionization. Go with contracts.
Yeah, people talk about the NFL so much, and what I like that you hit on there, Tom, is the NFL. Like, no matter who gets drafted number 1, right? We think it'll be Cam. He's going to make a set amount, and I like that. I like guaranteed maximums, guaranteed minimums. It is going to bring back the McDonald's bags. I get that, but I do think that that's ultimately a better situation, and there should be an enforcement on that too. All right, quickly, the portal. We kind of dipped into this really quickly. Tom, you can go real fast. I'll actually give you the next one too, since you both kind of jumped into the portal, and NIL and the portal are so linked. But quick thoughts on the portal?
Yeah, just do one portal window and do it after the national championship is done. Completely after the national championship is done. Hell, give it a week just so these coaches can sleep, something like that. But having 2 portal windows, like this year, the portal window for Penn State specifically takes place a week and a half and ends the day before their blue-white game, their spring game. So it's like, I'm literally coaching up guys that I will showcase in this event. Granted, it's not being televised this year, but you're putting it in a situation where it's like, why am I coaching these guys? Figure it out immediately after the national championship is over.
I agree with him. One portal window. Also, I agree. It's, in my opinion, one portal change. You get one opportunity to enter. Afterwards, you have to sit out for an entire year. And that does go toward your eligibility. It's not a redshirt year. You have to sit out for an entire year.
Fix the playoff, Tom.
I hated the seeding this past year. I did not understand, why the hell are Boise State and Arizona State getting preferential treatment? I don't think that the conference championship games really matter. They really don't. I understand that the TV networks are going to keep doing them because it's an extra game. I'm a big fan of the college basketball model where it's just, hey, you have a regular season champion and you just be done with it. Now, that team getting a bye, I just don't understand that Oregon gets a bye and Boise State gets a bye when we can all clearly see it's like, hey, this is not a better football team. So it's deserving versus best, that whole can of worms, et cetera. But the seeding needs to be redone. It absolutely has to be redone. And doing it based on preseason rankings is the real problem in all of this, is that you need to look at these teams based on how they perform on the field during the season, not because, we put somebody at number 1 in freaking July and they just happen to kind of stay the course, but we're going to leave them there in that general conversation anyway.
If I were to go ahead and fix it, I agree with Tom about the seeding things, but let's make it a little bit more interesting. Keep the value of the New Year's 6 games by having every playoff game, except for the national championship, played at the higher seeds' hometown court. Have them be played in college stadiums, because that's what makes college football such a unique sport. Over 113,000 seats are in the Big House, and now you're going to make them travel down to Glendale, Arizona, that only fits 76,000. Plus, you get to keep the integrity of the Fiesta Bowl. You get to keep the integrity of the Peach Bowl and the Cotton Bowl, and it's no longer it's just a win en route to going toward the national title, because of their quest is to actually go play for that one last game down in Miami Beach, down in the Rose Bowl, down in Atlanta, down in Houston, down in Indianapolis, whatever it is. And the game still should matter with the Peach Bowl. There used to be pride and joy of going to the Rose Bowl and claiming a victory. Do that still and have those games matter. You still could have had Ole Miss. You still could have had South Carolina. Still could have had Illinois. Still could have had Alabama in those matchups. And fans would have salivated for the opportunity to go to those games.
All right, we got 2 more, 20 seconds or less. Fix rankings, Cole.
I will easily just say you have to have a point of schedule, be a purpose in it. Straight the schedule has to matter. When you play against a ranked team, you do not need to be punished because if you lost by 1 point to a ranked team, if you don't play any ranked teams, yes, you should be rewarded, but how you win those games should play a major factor into settling where you fall into the top 25.
Tom?
Eliminate preseason rankings, only start them when you're going to do rankings for the college football playoff. And I might even go a step further. Do rankings based on win-loss record within your conference only.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, my quick one for that would just literally to come up with an algorithm and go with a true numbers-based metric, because I don't think scheduling will ever be equal enough. And so that makes it really tough. So literally just create an algorithm that everyone agrees on, and then you know what you need to attain.
Just do the BCS.
BCS.
Yeah, exactly. Last one, realignment.
Tom, you go first.
Draw geographical boundaries. Like the SEC actually has it like kind of organized. Like Texas is starting to get a little bit farther out there, but like I like that organization. Like why the ACC has Stanford in it. For me, it's more a branding thing in the names. It's like, all right, then just rename the whole conference. But if the brand is such a big deal to you, then why the hell is Stanford playing in the Atlantic Coast Conference? I don't get it. And Oregon is in the Big Ten, and Pac-12 is 2 teams. Like, figure it out.
Stop delaying the inevitable and just create the super conference. Give us the 50 teams that we know are going to be going to a national championship that you think are good enough to hoist up the title, that will bring in the television revenue. And don't worry about conferences. Just let those teams play against each other, battle it out. The top 15 or the top 16 or the top 18 or whatever the hell we decide on a number, they end up playing in the college football playoff, and everybody else goes to some other bowl game.
Yeah, I like it. The other alternative for realignment for me was to just literally go back to like 2000 and bring back the Big East, bring back like just go backwards.
Give me the Southwest Conference. Give me that shit.
I'm here for it. So, all right, we're all winners today. We need to get out of here. I don't even know how to pick a winner because we all kind of agreed on a lot of this stuff. So, TJ Pittinger, Tom Hannifan, Cole Thompson. If you watch this live, make sure that you hit the subscribe button over on YouTube. I did throw this up on X today, so if you're watching there, go subscribe on YouTube. College Football Addiction, boys. We'll be back next Wednesday. I appreciate you guys for hanging out.